Hello, welcome to Diary of a Creator. My name is Victoria. I am the soul-led career coach, and this is a channel and space for ambitious, freedom-seeking souls like me who refuse to settle for the ordinary. If you're feeling stuck in a career or life that no longer fits, you're starting to question your path and you're craving something more freedom, more alignment, more joy, then you are in the right place. And if my content resonates, I would love it if you could like, share, and subscribe. It helps me to reach more souls who need this message. Hello, everybody. I apologize. I have not been recording as much as I used to. I have made a commitment to myself that I come on when I really feel like sharing. Going to be talking about today has come from reflections that have been bubbling up for me since I turned 40 and then just come into a crash and a halt today because I'm a Scorpio, it's a Scorpio new moon, and I also have my period. Life has just decided that today is going to be my crash, but for some reason I feel to get these words out. I wanted to title it as expectations, and namely expectations are what's ultimately going to kill your clarity in terms of understanding what you want, but it's also going to kill you in the visioning process and going for your vision. And I want to start by explaining what expectations are. Expectations are from the ego. They are not your soul. Your soul doesn't hold expectations. It holds visions. It holds what is your highest expression of self, but it doesn't hold an expectation. When you're in your soul and your vision, things like timelines and all of these things that we'll naturally put into expectations are not really going to necessarily be shared or given because that is expectations. Expectations are an attempt for our ego to control the flow of energy. So it's wanting to control the direction of your vision. What expectations are going to do to clarity is create indecision. And that's also part of the ego's trick, right? Because the ego kind of wants you to keep where you are. It wants you to be safe. If you load a bunch of expectations onto a decision you're trying to make, which is what I'm in now, it's going to halt your clarity because it's too loaded. It has put so much weight onto this. And this is the things that start to drown out and hide the soul voice. So it comes into all periods of this process, whether you're looking for a change in career, life, and business, you can't make your next move, or you're just disappointed, because I am very familiar with the disappointing energy. And typically expectations come in with timelines, with urgency, and if you are the overachiever type, an expectation is going to leave you feeling disappointed. If you are listening to this in November, with all of what's going on with the energy, we are in a massive shedding, and this is a pattern of mine that has cycled. We're also at the end of the 9 years, so it's time to let these things go. Not only does it dim what I've achieved, but it also is what will keep me frozen from making decisions as well, because it does come in and then it's a disappointment energy. It's like expectations haven't been met, and then there starts to be this deep resentment at life and all of the energy that you put in. And this is where I've been today, so I won't go too far into that until we get into it. But more often than not, when you come from the overachiever side of life, you're not going to quite hit your expectations, because it's almost by design to make you feel a little bit deflated and keep you going, keep you seeking, like there's more, you're not quite enough. So the expectations never quite be met, which is just a complete setup for failure, right? Expectations by nature are also limited on the other side. So sometimes we'll feel like we haven't met an expectation, and then other times, if we allowed ourselves to truly let go of the expectation, you'd be surprised how far you can actually go, because expectations can only really be in the frame of what feels possible or what you know is possible. So they're a killer on all fronts, and a very natural default of their ego mind, which is coming up for me loudly today. The other one that has been coming up into my field around expectations is doing things with an expectation of a certain result. It's similar to what I was speaking with the vision, where you set the vision, you have a specific result in mind, and then everything you do has the expectation of a reward. So that reward being external. When it's not hit in the way you expect, that's when it starts to crash. Now, I've got two things that are present for me. A reflection on how my expectations and basically the energy of disappointment come in was coming up to my 40th birthday. With every big milestone, particularly for a woman turning 40, there is a natural reflection where you look at your life, look back at what you've done, and start to assess it. You start to be like, well, is this where I thought I would be? Have I achieved this? And all of these expectations. And what I started to notice is a lot of the expectations, particularly around the 40 mark that I was measuring myself to, were societal. So that's the other lens of expectations. Other people and society will have expectations on us. Our work is to define what those are, because we will very quickly believe that those expectations we have on ourselves, but actually we've just heard them so many times that we think it's ours, but it's actually someone else's. And so all of this was coming up around turning 40 because I don't have a partner and I don't have children. For a female in that regard, turning 40, there's a societal weight there. And I felt it kicking in when I went to send my 40th birthday invites out. It was when I went into a complete meltdown. I stayed in that for a little while, and it was the pity party of, it's pretty similar to what I've been in today, but I'm going to give myself grace because I've got my period and the energy is just absolutely nutty. But it was just this like, I've failed. My life isn't where I expected it to be. And just sitting in that and allowing those pity party stories to roll out and to actually really see the hurt, because disappointment is really always a deep level of sadness that something hasn't gone the way that you thought it would go. There's nothing wrong with that, because I would be lying to say that there isn't sadness, because that's totally fine. It's fine to be sad in that way. But what we do is we get stuck on it and we just ruminate in it. And if you really pick one thing that you've desired or something that's disappointed you, and you go back and think about how much energy and time you have spent ruminating on it in the now, so something that's already occurred that you can't actually change, but you're ruminating in the now on it because you had an expectation and it wasn't met, that is a lot of energy. It also does not bring whatever it is you want to you, because you are communicating from lack. This was all in my reflection around July. And I just really sat on that, because the ego can have a way of holding on to expectations to the absolute detriment of everything else that you have achieved that is going on in your life, but instead you want to spend time sitting in the energy of disappointment because an expectation was not met. And what it does is it just takes our focus away from what we're actually wanting, because you're spending the energy sad that you don't have it, but that's in the past, it's not now. So anything can happen going forward, but when we stick in expectations, it's not going to, because we're actually still living in the past. We're actually still holding on to the past when we're living in that way. And I kind of realized that, and I was like, wow, okay, like this has really been a long time, or a lot of my energy has been focused on the desire for a partner not coming through is pretty much my crux. What's come up today is more in the business as well. If you're an overachiever, you're going to be experiencing this type of shadow. You were sitting in the past. How is that doing anything? It's not helping you to get what you want from the desire that wasn't fulfilled in the past. There's nothing to say it can't be filled in the future. But by sitting in the past, it's never going to be filled anyway. So you're stuck. on that. So number one, it's not going to bring through what you're actually longing for. Number two is you are spending a lot of energy on it when you could be focused on what you've already achieved and what you can achieve. It is such a big trick of the ego, expectations, because it keeps us stuck in the past. It doesn't allow us to fully feel the actual truth of what is in front of us and what we have and how amazing we actually are. It's our ego's default to find what is wrong and focus on it, but it really is just the biggest waste of energy. Sometimes you're going to need to let it come up because there is a sadness under it that does need to be felt, and I've been feeling it all morning, don't worry, but this is also why I've come on here to speak this, because it's important. I'm speaking this as much for myself as I am speaking this for you, because this is a catch or a thing that the ego does, which is holding us back from shifting, from visions, from clarity. The other way it does it, which I'm also experiencing, is loading expectations onto decisions. And this is where people start to come into analysis paralysis and they can't move and they can't make decisions. And it's happened in this specific way twice to me before, actually, because I loaded a lot onto the decision. And my decision right now is whether or not I get a visa to work in Bali. This is a business decision, but it's become a loaded question because I find the online space incredibly difficult. If I wasn't in business, I wouldn't really be on social media. I didn't post on social media before business. I'm even sitting here going, why on earth did I set up a business where it relies on social media? That was just like me doing what I thought I had to have a freedom-based business. I've been aware that I need to do face-to-face, and this is how the organic or community growth comes from. But in that decision, there's a lot of loaded stuff because you're committing to a place, you're committing to a community, and I have loaded so much onto this decision that I am stuck in analysis paralysis. This is what happens when we load too much onto one decision. You almost give your ego kind of is going to block it, because it's just the expectations that one decision in your life is going to be the be all and end all, like it's really final. And even with a decision like a visa, it's not even really that final. It's for a year. It's an investment. If it doesn't pan out, I'm not like stuck here. It's not this decision where like it's going to have this knock-on impact, but my ego is trying to make me feel like there isn't. It will load things in like, but what if your tribe's not here? What if your partner's not here? But what if this? What if you should be here? What if? And that's because it's trying to put expectations onto one decision and stifle you from actually moving forward. These are the two key ways, at least that I've been observing from my experience, which is what I've come in to share, because it is the two examples and I know that they catch people on both ends. It's the decision-making process when you load too much and it will freeze you. Expectations will come into how your journey should be going and if it's not going that way. And equally, it comes in at the end when your vision hasn't hit the mark or the expectation as well. Now, when we think of the soul-led way of doing things, which is not about expectation, it is about vision. There is a vision, a North Star. You are moving towards something, but it is not defined. There are not conditions to that vision, and you don't have the how. You almost have your anchor, and then the rest of the work is to trust and surrender into that anchor and move step by step. It's only ever step by step. It's not mapping out the future or like the next 5-year plan of how you're going to get said vision. It's this is the vision, this is the energy, what do I do next? And even just noticing that there isn't as much expectation on what do I do next, because there's just one step. I'm not saying it's easy though, and this is why most of the work is the shadow. You'll do your next step and then there's uncertainty, right? Because you feel that and you're like, okay, what's next? And it's all just the momentum that leads in as you go. What expectations will do will create the entire map of how you're going to get there. Every time you don't hit a mark, it's kind of like writing a full-blown project management plan of like, do this at this point, do this at this point. That works for corporate and logic. It does not work for soul-led visions and soul-led careers. It can't. It just doesn't. And that's almost the frame that we're trying to put on it, is like step A, step B, step C. Oh, we didn't make step C. We're going to like sit here and mourn about it. Whereas the soul-led is, here's the vision. It is yours. Trust it, surrender, take one step at a time. With my 40th, a lot of the energy or the expectation I had on it when I was sending invites was like, I don't like doing things that celebrate myself. It can sometimes trigger my sense of belonging when people don't come. I ended up letting all of that go. I sent the invites out. I wasn't really expecting much because I don't really like celebrating. People had said yes. I think I booked things like a month out, so it was quite last minute because people were coming to Bali. I had friends traveling from New York, New Zealand, Australia. My mum came and friends here. Again, pretty casual, not expecting much. I didn't go in with expectations. I had the best week ever. And I've done parties at my 30th, my 21st, and both I was a bit like, because my expectation was higher. This time it was entirely different and I had the best time. I fully let it go. If my expectation was there, this would have blown it out of the water. When we just relax and trust and just almost receive, that's what I did. I opened up to receive, which is very uncomfortable for me. But now I'm like, no, I could do this a lot more. How to move forward with this? Define what your expectations are. Think of the societal level expectations that you might have on yourself. Think about timelines. That one is huge. So, 40th birthday, that's a timeline one. That's a biological clock, societal standards, timeline. Business growth is the other one that's coming up for me. That is timeline. It's all of these things there's a pressure. Also go back to moments where you have achieved something, but there's been a dull because you've had an expectation in place and there was something that just wasn't quite a miss. This could be, you could have patterns around people disappointing you, goals, all these different kinds of things. You'll start to see your patterns of where you're placing expectations. If you are frozen on any decisions, have a look at how much you've stacked on that decision and how weighted you've made that decision. Because it's not going to be the only block. Like there's many blocks to clarity. If you want to do my inner compass reset, that goes through the rest of the blocks as well. You can go into a physical journey to get clarity, like body clarity, not mind clarity. Just look at decisions where you're frozen and see how much you're trying to stack on it and what you're expecting from that decision. The more you place on that decision, the less it's going to flow. Because expectations are almost like trying to control the flow of your energy. Expectations will predict this. You'll be disappointed. And an expectation is not a vision. They are different. You can have a vision and then go, whoa, I exceeded it. An expectation is a very controlled measure of how you're going to do that vision. The other one to pay attention to is there anything you are doing or committing to where you have an expectation of some form of external reward? That's a bit of a setup from the ego. It's almost an expectation of reward. If you come in with an expectation, doing something, it's going to be harder for that said thing to land in as well. So that's one other aspect. I'm going to leave it there. I will leave the link to the Inner Compass Reset at the bottom. If you are blocked and in indecision, this one is for you. This one is for people that are stuck and wanting to understand which way they're meant to go. The videos are just explaining how we block our own clarity. But if you really actually want clarity and you are in indecision, this one's going to help you. Okay?